Oh boy, those My Hero spoilers almost put a damper on this week's jump, but man, was it a good chapter. Hey everybody, Axel Blaze here, back with a more traditional Shonen Jump review video after last week's Sakamoto Days takeover. There's a lot to talk about this week with so many series having absolutely fantastic chapters. Jujutsu Kaisen had the cover and lead colors with Sakamoto Days, Magu-chan, and Ayakashi Triangle also getting color pages. Spy Family had a new chapter 2 after 4 weeks since the last one, so you can bet that we're going to cover that. So, for this week's video, we'll be doing a different format. Instead of going over all 21 series in the magazine and Spy Family, I will be talking about my top 10 from the week and Spy Family on top of that. I'm still reading every series though, so if you want my thoughts on a particular series or chapter, I am more than happy to chat about them in the comments. Keep in mind moving forward, there will be spoilers ahead for this week's jump, and all thoughts on the chapters ahead, as well as the placement on or off of my list, are all my opinions. With those two disclaimers out of the way, let's discuss the best of the best in this week's issue of Weekly Shonen Jump, the 11/29/20 issue. So, let's start with Spy Family before getting into the magazine proper. Mission 37. Tonight marks the night of the Imperial Scholars Mixer, and Lloyd is wandering around the school in disguise in the extremely off chance that he's able to run into Donovan Desmond. Damien Desmond wants to talk with his father and asks his older brother Demetrius, one of the current Imperial Scholars, if he can pass the message along to his father. Demetrius agrees, but warns him that their father is busy and might not show, which makes Damien's heart waver. Anya, being the instigator that she is and detecting her father's thoughts, follows Damien before confronting him, telling him not to be a coward. While she wants to be there to see Damien's father, she ends up passing out and her friend Becky takes her home. Lloyd doesn't miss his chance though. He moves in to apologize to Damien for Anya's behavior, and then the moment arrives when he and Donovan Desmond are face to face for the very first time. Now, this is not how I expected these two to meet for the first time, but wow, we are finally here. I am honestly curious to see what happens between these two, and I have an unfortunate feeling about what will happen with Damien. The poor kid is probably about to be crushed emotionally and or mentally by his dad, but maybe we'll see Lloyd step in and say something now that he's become more fatherly. We'll see when the next chapter comes out in 2 weeks. With Spy Family out of the way, let's get into the magazine proper with my top 10. That being said, I will begin with 3 honorable mentions. The 2 that will probably ruffle some feathers, though, are my honorable mentions for Chainsaw Man and Jujutsu Kaisen. At their core, both of these chapters were pure brawls between 2 characters, 2 nicely choreographed ones at that. But other than a few pages of exposition, they were exaggerated fistfights. And that's not saying that they were bad, because I thoroughly enjoyed both chapters, especially the implications at the end of Chainsaw Man's chapter. I just enjoyed a little bit more depth in some of the other chapters this week, a little bit more because there was more. If I did have one criticism, it's that in Jujutsu Kaisen, I was a little disappointed with Mahiro's transformation so far. His shtick up to this point was all about transforming his body in grotesque ways to fight, and now he's just super tough. Plus, seeing the expressions on his face made him all the more interesting, and we've lost that now that we only see half of his face. My other honorable mention for this week is Ayakashi Triangle. Suzu became the new king of the Ayakashi this week in place of Shirogane after the last battle drained him of his power. That said, this chapter had some of the lewdest pages yet. And if that's your cup of tea, cool. I just wasn't a big fan of the Kettle Tanuki Ayakashi in this chapter, just a personal preference. But otherwise, it had a very nice color page at the very beginning. So that is why it is one of my honorable mentions. Now then, the top chapter of the week, in my opinion, is My Hero, despite all the leaks that happened a few days before the chapter came out. Again, geez, oh my gosh. It is, I'm so used to I'm so used to One Piece like being fan translated early. I'm not used to seeing My Hero spoilers just plaster the internet. Best Genus was a strong contender, as I thought he would be. But I had a feeling last week that he couldn't take on all the villains by himself, given the state that everyone else was in. I do love, though, how Bakugo knew he wasn't dead, and it goes to show that he recognizes Best Genus as the top hero that he is. I mean, he did intern for him. With heroes falling one by one or in danger everywhere you look, the last person you'd expect to see pop up now is freaking Lemillion, and with his powers back in some capacity. Stands to reason that we'll see a flashback next chapter explaining things, but if I had to guess, we were seeing signs of this being a thing, with Aria's horn gradually growing back in size ever since she was rescued and living at UA. And now that she's clearly in a better mental state, maybe she has finally been able to use some of her powers by choice rather than reflex. And if that is the case, Eraser will definitely need that in the near future. That aside, we're at one hell of a tipping point in this chapter, and my anticipation keeps rising for the aftermath. Let's see if Horikoshi can end this arc in a satisfying way here. My second favorite chapter of the week goes to Dr. Stone. The Senku team makes their escape via motorcycle as Stanley's team closes in. It's a back and forth battle between both sides, but Stanley is a monster when it comes to combat and tactics. Damn. Senku's team is able to get away and they sabotage the plane on the Perseus, but Stanley's able to interpret Zeno's Morse code via blinking, and he wounds both Tsukasa and Hyoga's arms. It has been incredibly interesting to see Senku's team struggling against constant disadvantages. They're getting their victories where they can, but Stanley and Zeno are gradually closing in toward victory. Tsukasa and Hyoga being injured is huge, since they have no means of insta-healing them right now, since the Medusa is kaput. And it's just another handicap for them to overcome, and I really want to see how they address it. This current arc with Zeno has been fantastic so far, and he just continues to prove that he is a fantastic villain. Taking the bronze this week is Sakamoto Days. This series is steamrolling its way to the top in my opinion, and the second chapter did not disappoint. So, in this chapter, we got to see more details about Sakamoto's marriage and his wife's character. We find out that Sakamoto no longer kills people, not even the guys from the last chapter, since he says no lethal wounds were inflicted. And maybe most surprising of all, Sakamoto is only 27. He is 27, and telling him my own age here, but he's a year younger than I am, but he looks like he's in his 40s. All of this happens as Sakamoto's wife is being held hostage on a bus this chapter by a bunch of dudes pissed off that their favorite manga series was canceled. I'm laughing out loud at the meta humor here. Sakamoto's wife isn't worried though, because he's always there to save her. And he does. After leaping across buildings and stopping the bus with a freaking traffic stop sign. It's so good. This chapter is great for so many reasons. The action and humor are top notch while also playing to our emotions with Sakamoto's marriage and including Shin in the family. Perfect balance of action, humor, and emotions, and I love it. My expectations for this manga continue to be very high, and if you have not started reading this series yet, read it now, darn it. You are going to enjoy reading this on a weekly basis. In the fourth position is Mashal. The absurdity takes another leap up as the divine visionaries make their introductions. The man overseeing Mash's hearing was apparently infected by a magical parasite by Innocent Zero. The evil organization warns the visionaries that they need to keep their hands off of Mash because he belongs to them. Now, while everyone is debating about what to do with the parasite, Mash casually pulls it off the man only for it to go down his throat. What does Mash do in response? He ties it up like a balloon dog in his mouth using his tongue and spits it back out. He does the frickin' cherry stem trick, but with the parasites. Oh my gosh. And despite this, one of the visionaries still wants to do away with Mash. So Mash plants his feet into the ground, defiantly saying that he won't go. It's clear at this point that Mash, he's not going anywhere. He's too important at this point to kill or exile him, so I'm curious to see what the Visionaries ultimately decide to do with him. If nothing else, he'll definitely be under closer observation. They can't afford not to, with Innocent Zero now involved. And that parasite balloon animal, oh my god, it was freaking hilarious. Like, I love what this author does. He finds just new and better ways to just make MASH more ridiculous than he already is. 5th place goes to One Piece. This week we see Sanji get captured by Black Maria's group, while Zoro takes down Apu and gets Chopper the antidote right as he yells out about how this fight isn't a game. As Yamato tries to escape with Momo, a terrifying truth is revealed. And that's that Kaido's power is making the island fly up into the air and toward the flower capital. In hindsight, the island moving makes a lot of sense. It allows for a good transition toward the final stage without a convoluted chase scene or something similar. Sanji getting captured was disappointing, and given his track record with women, he's gonna need someone else to step in to save him here. That said, Zoro was the star of this chapter, if that wasn't obvious for anyone that read it. His speech was amazing, and the comment made by Robin about Kiku's arm just gave the moment a lot more gravity. Very, very nice. Zoro made up for Sanji's failure in this chapter for sure. Now then, I'm putting Black Clover in 6th place this week because the reveals in this chapter were fantastic. We open up in the Spade Kingdom, where we find that the lead scientist Morris and the smoke mage Lotus from the Diamond Kingdom have now defected to Spade. The Triad Mage defeated by Yami and Asta is floating in a tube being healed, but the most terrifying thing to be seen is this massive frozen demon looming over them. Also, Yami and William are in coffins facing each other surrounded by roots, so that's ominous and a definite sign that the ritual is about to begin. Meanwhile, a prediction I had came true with Asa, and that's that we didn't get to see an official Demon Union reveal in this chapter. Last week, before I decided to make the Sakamoto Days script instead, this was something that I kind of predicted. He and Lieb were able to use the Demon Union, but only for a few seconds off screen. This is clearly being saved for a more epic moment, and the author just can't use it yet. He needs it for ratings later. Noct's follow-up speech is really touching, and he decides to leave Gimadello behind for Asta and Lieb to train with as he sets off for the Spade Kingdom. Just as several captains and other magic knights set off for the Spade as well, including Seke for whatever reason. I think that might be the king's doing, but we'll see. Black Clover is laying down the foundation for one hell of a fight, and the stakes are super high. Higher than their fight with the elves or the previous devil. Lots of questions still left though, but I'm confident that they'll be addressed. Especially the question of where the hell Magna and Zora are. We still have not seen them post-time skip. Also, I really, really want the Chibi Devils as plushies or something. I love them so much. They are freaking cute, damn it. Oh my god, I need them. Even if I have to make them, I need them. We Never Learn goes in 7th place as the school festival reaches its climax. And boy, is it a feels trip. Naruyuki and Mafuyu continue to make their way through the festival until it's nighttime. This is where Naruyuki's latest surprise comes in, as Mafuyu's former classmates show up to hang out with her and reminisce about the past. They dig up a time capsule and reveal a notebook with comments written by the class for Mafuyu since she didn't go to the trip. And a particular comment by Naruyuki's father makes her remember the first time that she met Naruyuki when they were younger. And as the fireworks go off in the present, Mafuyu slips her hand into Naruyuki's and admits to herself that she's in love with him. It makes for a nice double-page spread, and this marks the third time that they've held hands during the festival fireworks over the course of the years together. And while this route doesn't beat out the Kominami route, in my opinion, it's been super sweet to read as Naruyuki melts the ice around Mafuyu's heart, especially with the history the authors crafted in this route between them. I'm gonna be sad when this manga ends, but it has been a very, very enjoyable ride. So I love We Never Learn. I really will miss it. 8th place goes to A Gravity Boys as the contentious duo of Baba and Arsh accidentally time travel back in time 100 years because of Chocolat the Space Otter. And unfortunately for them, they're stuck in the past unless they can find a unique plant that will serve as fuel to get back to the future. Despite their differences, they're able to come together because of their love for Geralt. Until they return to the present when Baba gets hugged by Geralt and Arsh just loses it. The rivalry between these two characters has always been really enjoyable, so seeing them stuck in the past together was really funny. And it's only fitting that an entire chapter of friendship development gets scrapped within moments of returning to the present. The quote, "You split Baba Boy right into half," is such a funny line, and man, I continue to love the humor in A Gravity Boys every single week, and I'm sad that it doesn't necessarily see the same popularity in Japan, but it's such a fun ride. Undead Unlock beats out one more title to get 9th this week. We see Fuko spend more time with Andy in the past as they meet various other people that join and leave Andy's gang, mostly via death. Fuko has learned a lot of English in this time and has become a little bit more accustomed to her powers and being around other people. As she and Andy have a heartfelt conversation about what death really means to them, Fuko says out loud that she loves Andy. Well, future Andy anyways. Western Andy reveals that his memory goes back to 1865 in Washington, D.C., so that's Fuko's next time-traveling destination. As she lifts off into the sky, she tells Andy to make sure he catches her in 144 years in the year 2020, when she first gets saved in the very first chapter of the manga. And this chapter was really sweet, and I think that the philosophical talk that Andy and Fuko had was really well done. It's crazy to see Fuko actually confess at this point in the manga, so that should lead to some interesting developments when she returns to the present. On top of the fact that it's so rare to see, confessions of love happen that early in a manga, especially when it's not a rom-com manga. It's technically a battle manga, so it's really refreshing to see, and I'm interested to see how it turns out. Last but not least, rounding out the top 10 is Magu-chan. This week's chapter features another trip to the mall, but this time Ren has a plan to make this a perfect date with Ruru. What a fool. Despite Nabutaku working together with Ren to make the day perfect by distracting Magu, a series of unlucky events leaves Ren feeling depressed. He thinks the date was ruined because he couldn't pull off the perfect plan, but Ruru says that she really enjoyed spending time together. They end up walking home together in the rain under a Magu shaped like an umbrella, and that is just really wholesome. As always, Magu and Nabutaku steal the show in this chapter. The crane game scene in particular is hilarious as Magu tries fending off the crane and bringing a mole plushie out with him, and good boy Nabutaku going out into the rain to find an umbrella, even if it's broken, is also super wholesome. The manga in general is just so delightfully wholesome, and I really love it for that. It's nice seeing just a wholesome manga series in Jump. Not that this is the only one. There are several other ones, but like you wouldn't expect it from this series about a chaos god in the shape of a pink octopus. So I really love Magu-chan. And with that being said, that's my top 10 list for this week's Jump. Lots of impactful chapters this week with several arc climaxes all happening around the same time. I'm still curious about what's going to happen though with the lowest tier series once the next batch of new series comes out. It's clear at this point that We Never Learn is the only concretely ending series within a few chapters, But once a new batch of manga comes out, we will see the axe swing down on a few series. Mori King appears to be the most obvious candidate for ending, and Gravity Boys is also heading toward an ending now that they've acquired a time machine. Anything other than those two is definitely speculation, and we won't know what all gets canceled until we see the exact number of the new serialized series coming out. But what do you guys think? Was there a particular chapter or chapter that you enjoyed in this week's Jump? Are there any interesting theories for the top series? Was there anything in particular you didn't like or were disappointed by? And what do you think is going to happen to, the series that are probably going to get axed? I want to hear what you guys have to say in the comment section down below. Also, let me know if you enjoyed this format of video over the last one. I'm still trying to adapt these Jump reviews the best I can, so all feedback is appreciated. Other than that, thank you guys for watching. As always, stay tuned for another episode of my weekly podcast this Friday. If you haven't already, you can watch last week's podcast by clicking the link at the end of this video. I talk about some of my favorite wholesome anime and manga, so if you enjoy that genre, make sure to check it out. And as always, if you liked this video, it would mean a lot to me if you click the like button, or like I said, leave a comment down in the comment section. Any interaction is fantastic. If you're not subscribed already but want to see more of my content, hit that subscribe button and hit the bell icon if you want to be notified of every video that I put out. Otherwise, until next time, my name is Jordan, aka Axel Blaze, and I am ready to get back on the Mirio Simp train. Full steam ahead, Horikoshi. Bye-bye, everybody.